Hello and welcome to PSF 401 Political Behavior. My name is Russell Luke and I will be your instructor for this course. This course looks at political behavior across the American political system. We look at campaigns and elections, parties and pressure groups, as well as models of vote choice and belief structure. Throughout this semester, you'll be exposed to theories and ideas about why people behave the way that they do in the political sphere. Now, for some of you, if you have taken a upper division political science course before, this may be a bit of a review, but for those of you who haven't, political science is essentially the attribution or the application of the scientific method to political outcomes. We seek to explore why things occur. In this class, why people behave the way that they do. We want to derive testable hypotheses, or to put it another way, we want to test whether or not our ideas about why something is occurring is true or if it is false. If this is in any way confusing to you or otherwise unfamiliar, I encourage you to read KKV Chapter 1, which is listed in Canvas as an optional reading. King, Kohane, and Verba are kind of the seminal text here. They are very much the foundation of much of what modern political science is. For this course, the only things that you are going to need is a computer with the ability to use Google Docs and to access PDFs, as well as access to the digital textbook. On the first day of class today, you should have access to the digital textbook. Please contact me via email if you do not have access to the digital textbook. Next up here is how to contact me. I'm not going to hold office hours every week for a couple hours. Instead, I want you to contact me. I'll be at my desk from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. If you have an issue, if you have a problem, email me and we can set up a Zoom meeting, we can set up a phone call, whatever works best for you. But the best way to contact me is through email. My email is on the screen now, and so contact me there. Next up here is the course syllabus. The course syllabus, it's very long, it's very detailed. It includes most of the answers to any question that you are going to have. So with this, let's start in and look at the graded components for this course. The graded components for this course are described in detail in the syllabus, so I urge you to read each of these sections carefully. Looking at the course as a whole, the course consists of a syllabus quiz, weekly readings, annotations, 10 reading analyses, peer reviews, weekly video lectures, 4 response papers, and 2 exams. Now I'll talk about each of these in detail. First up is the syllabus quiz. The syllabus quiz is worth 5% of your final grade. This is open note, open book, but you must achieve 100% completion on this by January 25th at 11:59 p.m. The purpose of the syllabus quiz is to gauge your understanding of the course policies, deadlines, and so on within this course. By completing the syllabus quiz, you agree to adhere to all course policies and all deadlines within this course. Next up here are the course readings. These are split into 2 separate categories. The first of these are required readings as well as choice readings. Required readings, as the name implies, are required of you. The difference between these are clearly denoted in both Canvas and in the course schedule at the end of the syllabus. On the other hand, choice readings are those where some weeks you'll have the option between 2, 3, or 4 readings from which you can choose from. Your role is to choose one of these options and read it. An additional component to these readings, for those readings that are not within the digital textbook, they are on Canvas in a platform known as Hypothesis. Hypothesis is a platform that allows for collaborative annotation of these readings. Essentially, what I want you to do is for every reading that is hosted within the Hypothesis platform, I want you to provide at least 2 annotations on the required and 2 annotations on the reading of your choice. Basically, I want you to highlight connections from previous readings, highlight connections to the contemporary political events, or highlight things that perhaps you understand less well than you would hope. Now, you will be graded on this to the degree to which you meaningfully contribute to the collective understanding of the material. Simply writing an annotation says, "I agree," or "That's interesting," doesn't really count here. These shared annotations are worth 10% of your final grade. The next component are the reading analyses. These are worth 10% of your final grade, and you will write 10 of these throughout the semester. Essentially, after completing the week's readings and annotations, you're going to write an analysis or otherwise a synthesis of the readings. I want you to briefly summarize what you read, highlight any connections between those readings, any shared topics or complementary or conflicting arguments, as well as connect those readings to any previous material or any other insights that you developed while doing those readings. Now, there isn't a hard word count limit or word count requirement for these, but generally speaking, these should be around 1,000 words. These are essentially graded on how well you summarize these arguments and synthesize the readings that you chose. The next graded component, and the last one specifically related to the course readings, are peer reviews. Each week, after completing and submitting your reading analysis, you will be assigned 3 of your classmates' analyses to review. Essentially, I want you to read their analysis and offer your suggestions on what insights they missed, what connections between this week's readings and previous week's readings were not apparent in their analysis, or otherwise offer suggestions on how they can improve their analysis. If you, for example, read one of the choice readings and they read another, highlight some connections that perhaps wouldn't be apparent based on their readings. You will do 3 of these each week, and these are worth 5% of your final grade. Just saying "good job" or "that's interesting" or "I agree" is not sufficient here. You are graded specifically on the degree to which you offer meaningful feedback that they can incorporate in preparation for the course exams, as well as increasing their understanding of the course materials. The next graded component are weekly video lectures uploaded to Canvas, like this one. Embedded within these lectures will be a series of questions designed to help you increase your understanding and retention of the materials covered that week. Moreover, I will discuss difficult topics in that week's readings. I will try and connect this week's readings to previous week's readings, as well as draw some connections to contemporary political events. Your completion of these lectures is worth 10% of your final grade, but you can watch these lectures as many times as you like, so there's no reason not to earn the full 10% for this component. The next graded component to discuss are the response papers, worth 20% of your final grade. You will write 4 of these throughout the course of the semester in specified weeks. Now, you will be provided with a question or a prompt within the Canvas assignment when you click on it. I essentially want you to make an argument in response to this question or in response to this prompt. In order to do so, you should draw on not only that week's readings, but the readings up until that point in the semester, as well as any additional research that you find necessary in order to adequately answer that question. All supplemental resources, as well as those used in the course, must be cited in line with APA or APSA guidelines, and I'll talk more about citations and references in a few minutes here. Now, these will be graded on the completeness of your response. To put it another way, how well you respond to that question and how well you make an argument in response to that question, as well as anticipating and responding to any likely counter-arguments. These should take the structure of somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 words with no more than 2,000 words. This doesn't include any quotes or the references page at the end. I have included a sample response paper in Canvas for you to get an example of how you should structure these. The final graded component to discuss are the exams. In this course, you will take 2 exams, each worth 20% of your final grade. These take the form of timed essays, and the way that this will work is that you will navigate through Canvas to a Google Doc, after which you will have 90 minutes to draft a response to your choice of 1 or 2 exam questions. Upon clicking on the link in Canvas, this 90-minute timer will start, and you will have until the end of that 90 minutes to draft your response. These are open book and open note, but that just means that the questions are going to be much harder, as well as the grading of those questions. In preparations for these exams, you should organize your notes and take detailed notes throughout the semester that are easily referenced while you are taking these exams. Now, as the midterm exam approaches, I will publish a specific video lecture detailing this process, as well as a discussion of how you should prepare for this, so I won't linger on this topic too long now. The midterm and final exam periods are discussed in the syllabus. So that's the graded components for this course. And you'll have noticed throughout this lecture that I have put up blocks of text at approximately 5-second intervals. I wasn't expecting you to read all of the text there. These graded components are detailed in perhaps excruciating detail in the syllabus. You should read all of the syllabus, but specifically these sections carefully to understand what is expected of you in this course. By remaining in the course and completing the syllabus quiz, you agree to the course policies and the grading components of this course. Now, before we leave you for today, we just have to discuss some of the key course policies throughout this semester. In the syllabus, after the section on graded components, are approximately 7 pages of course policies. You are, of course, expected to read, understand, and conform with all of these policies while remaining in the course, but I want to draw your attention to several of the most important of these policies. The first of these is what I call expectations of decorous behavior. This specifically pertains to the peer reviews. Now, while the peer reviews are anonymous to one another, the peer reviews are not anonymous to me. I will not tolerate demeaning, disrespectful, or otherwise uncouth behavior within these. It is okay to give constructive criticism to your classmates. In fact, this is one of the ways that we improve. But the emphasis here needs to be on constructive. This isn't a chance to take cheap shots. This isn't a chance to vent your frustrations about life onto your classmates. Be respectful. Be constructive in your feedback that you provide. The next policies I want to emphasize are those pertaining to academic integrity. Fundamentally, this is a 400 level course. There are no more excuses for plagiarism. There is no more excuses for cheating. I take these things extremely seriously. Throughout this course, you need to appropriately attribute all thoughts, all resources, all ideas that are not your own. For the exams and the reading analyses, these are sufficient in terms of inline citations. However, if I request the source of those inline citations, you need to be able to provide those and provide those on a timely basis. For the response papers, however, you need both inline citations as well as a reference page at the end. I have uploaded the APSA style guide both in full and a quick reference version to the Canvas course page. Plagiarism is not acceptable at this level, and if found, I will not hesitate to report you to ORCA and pursue a complaint against you to the fullest degree possible. The penalties for violating the policies on academic integrity are detailed in the syllabus, and I urge you to read these in order to not run afoul of them. Now, related to these are the policies in this course on the use of AI or otherwise large language models, like things like Claude, ChatGPT, and others. In this course, the use of these tools is absolutely prohibited. There are specific details on how you may not use these. Specifically, you cannot use Grammarly because that is an LLM-based approach. Moreover, you cannot use AI, ChatGPT, Claude, any of these to generate any part or in whole of any of your written assignments throughout the semester. The way that this will work in this semester is that all of your written submissions will be checked for both plagiarism and the usage of AI models. If on first indication your submission is found to have exceeded 25% of AI generated text, it will then be run through 3 additional independent AI detection models. If on all 4 concur that this writing was more than 25% 95% AI generated, for the first time you will receive a 0 on that assignment. A academic misconduct report will be filed with ORCA, but for the first time this is a violation of the course policies. For the second time, not only will you receive a 0 on that assignment, but you will also be referred to ORCA on suspicion of academic dishonesty. If the review is found to have used AI to generate in part or in full any of your written exercises, you will fail the course in addition to receiving a 0 on that assignment. I take this very seriously. In this course in particular, I don't particularly care how your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. I care about what you're saying. I care about your ability to critically think and critically analyze the materials that are presented to you. I don't particularly care what Claude or ChatGPT has to say about a certain thing. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear your view on these topics, your responses to these questions. It's it's relatively easy for me to tell when AI is being used because it lacks depth, and particularly in this course. You may be able to get away with it in a 101 or a 201 or whatever it might be. In this course, you are expected to be at a 400 level mode of thinking and therefore of writing. If you have superficial submissions here, even if I don't catch the AI, you're very unlikely to do well on that assignment because I don't care your degree to which you summarize the extant state of the literature. I care about your ability to critically think and critically analyze, something that AI is terrible at. I understand the burdens of being an undergrad, particularly being an upper level undergrad, and the requirements on your time, specifically if you are working as well. I would urge you against being tempted to use these tools, not only for the punitive measures that will be taken, but otherwise, if you use these tools, you will be unprepared for the exams. You will score poorly on your written exercises, the assignments, the response papers, the reading analyses, as well as the rest of the course here. So I urge you not to use them. The AI policies are discussed in detail within the syllabus and is a core component of the syllabus quiz as well. Next up here are the writing requirements. It may be a little bit strange in this course how I'm going to have you write. Basically, everything in this course needs to be done through Google Docs. For the response papers and the reading analyses, you're going to upload these, you're going to submit these after writing these in Google Docs. You'll download it into either a doc or a PDF and you'll upload it. In the comment for that submission, you must put the URL for the Google Doc in that comment so I can go back and look. Moreover, if you deactivate the version history, it's called basically the history of how you wrote, for that specific assignment, you receive a 0, full stop. It's not an academic dishonesty thing. It just is you receive a 0 on that one. Moreover, if you fail to provide that URL, you receive a 0. If you write your submission in something other than Google Docs, you receive a 0 for that assignment. In this class, you have to write everything through Google Docs. This is to facilitate an additional measure of AI detection here. The course's late policy is 20% penalty for each day that an assignment is late. This means that after 5 days, you receive no credit for that assignment. One final note here. All of the due dates in this course are listed in the last 3 pages of the syllabus in the course schedule. Additionally, these are listed in Canvas. I've also broken down the course in Canvas on a week-by-week basis. Each of the week 1, week 2, week 3 modules have everything that is required or otherwise due within that week, so it should be very clear. If you're anyway unclear or uncertain about a deadline, feel free to contact me via email. Now, before we leave, I just want to discuss briefly about what you'll be reading this week. It's very much an introduction to political behavior, but fundamentally asking the question, what is required for a democracy? Is it just institutions? Is it just voting? Or is it something more? There are a variety of ways to measure democracy. There's VDEM, there's polity, there's a bunch of different measures that you can use, but generally they break these down into liberal democracies versus electoral democracies versus procedural degrees or levels of democraticness. And one of the questions that we have to answer is specifically, why might a country, why might a political system be more democratic than another? Is it, again, just those institutions, or is there something shared amongst the electorate, shared amongst the people that contribute to how democratic a society might be? Again, and I'll close with this, if you haven't read King, Cohane, and Verba, if you haven't taken Introduction to Political Science Research Methods, I believe that's Political Science 222, I would urge you to read that just as kind of a refresher. But otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I'll be back next week with a video lecture posted later on in the day on Monday. Feel free to reach out via email if you have any questions about the course or if anything is otherwise unclear. I'll both respond to you and then include that in the video lecture. If you have a question, it's very likely that you are not the only person to have a question. But for this week, get started on the readings, and your first reading analysis is due this Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, by January 18th by 11:59 p.m. Otherwise, welcome to the course.